So big story. We are recording right now. It's Thursday. 2 days ago, Tuesday, several drone attacks were thwarted in Moscow, coming from Ukrainian forces. It appears that the intended targets were civilian. Look, I just want to get into a little bit of this here, but it's just like the stuff we've been talking about now for well over a year is just, it is impossible to overstate how psychotic the policy on this war in Ukraine is and how incredibly dangerous it is. And it is something where people have this attitude that like, oh, you're just being an alarmist if you think like things can get to this catastrophic level over there, although it's already at a pretty catastrophic level. But you're like, stories like this just let you know how close, like how close we're already coming to something like this spiraling out of control. And once it spirals out of control, we are just hoping that the people who have pushed this reckless policy will at that point not escalate things further, hoping that the other one backs down. Anyway, the whole thing is pretty insane. So let me the title of this article, I will put it in the link here. Russia says the UK encouraging Ukrainian attacks on Russian civilians. So the Russian embassy in the UK on Wednesday slammed London over comments by the British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly. So he cleverly said that Kiev has the right to, quote, project force beyond its borders to undermine Russia's ability to project force into Ukraine itself. Legitimate military targets beyond its own borders are internationally recognized as being part of a nation's self-defense. So, in other words, if you are, and this is true according to international law, if you are invaded by a country, you have the right to defend yourself, and that right to defense includes offensively targeting military targets of the invading country, which is, reasonable enough. The issue here is that these were civilian targets. At least that's what it appears to be. Also,
rules of war are a little bit stupid because once you're at war, what are you going to do? Go to war with the country for violating the rules of war? They're at war. What are you going to do?
It's like, it's very bizarre. It's like if you're like, we're going to fight to the death, but no hitting in the face. You know what I mean? Like, You're like, I don't know. I mean, if the loser dies, I'm probably going to do anything I can do here to fight. Yes, it's, and also just the truth is that rules of war are almost never followed in wars. And of course, obviously, like this is the thing that Julian Assange exposed with his first major famous dump that Bradley Manning passed off to him, was like the war crimes that we were committing in our wars in the Middle East. It's like there might be these rules on paper, but also, as you could imagine, even when there's not like orders given to commit war crimes, you can imagine, imagine sending 18, 19-year-old boys to go on murder sprees and then expecting that, you know what I mean? This isn't going to turn into some crazy, shit.
You get a post-fight press conference, but for war, and the losing side's like, well, we were trying to fight a fair fight. They bombed our hospitals. They took out civilian targets. They dropped a nuke on one of our major cities. So, yeah, I guess we lost the fight.
Yeah, right. Okay, so anyway, in response to Cleverly, the Russian embassy put out a statement. They said the hostile statements by Britain's top, quote, diplomat cannot be viewed as anything but an attempt to encourage the Kiev regime to carry out more attacks on the civilian facilities and our civilians. Apparently, from their windows, the Foreign Office or Estonia sees residential blocks in Moscow as, quote, legitimate military targets. Now, Dmitry Medvedev, who's the former president of Russia and is currently, what's his role here? He's the chair of Russia's Security Council. He tweeted in English, and he said, the goofy officials of the UK, our eternal enemy, should remember that within the framework of the universally accepted international law which regulates modern warfare, including the Hague and Geneva Conventions with their additional protocols, their state can also be qualified as being at war. Today, the UK acts as Ukraine's ally, providing it with military aid in the form of equipment and specialists, i.e., de facto is leading an undeclared war against Russia. That being the case, any of its public officials, either military or civil, who facilitate the war can be considered as legitimate military targets. Well, these are like strong words. Now, of course, the reason they're saying this about the UK is because this guy cleverly from the UK came out and basically was defending Ukraine hitting targets inside of Russia. But just to be clear, everything they said there also applies to the United States of America. I'm just look, these drones didn't kill civilians. They were thwarted. So this one here is not going to be the thing that escalates and leads to a wider war, a world war, even, God forbid, a nuclear war. But it just goes to show you how easily this could happen. Like it's that easy. And look, Medvedev here, he's absolutely got a point. That he's like, look, you guys are fighting in undeclared war against Russia. You're involved in the war effort. And if you're also if you're sending in weapons to a war and then encouraging those people who you gave the weapons to strike civilian targets in Russia, then Russia has a legitimate right to say that you are now you have essentially gone to war with them. And what, you have to wonder, the thing that's so scary about this war is that, America is treating it as if this is a must-win war. But we all know it's not. Like, no one actually thinks that, for the United States of America, we couldn't survive if Russia wins this war and takes a chunk of Ukraine. That has no effect on our country, really. But for Putin, this really is a must-win war. He kind of can't be humiliated right on his own border and then see Ukraine completely taken into the West. He can't lose that. There's a much stronger argument for him that this is a must-win. And then imagine not only losing the war, but then Russian civilians also being killed by Western weapons that were sent to Ukraine. It's just putting enormous pressure on him that he would have to do something. And why in the world would we want to do that? And now this shows you exactly, it's a perfect demonstration of exactly why the West shouldn't be funding this war. If Ukrainians want to defend themselves, they have a right to do that. But as soon as we start sending our weapons into that war, now, if those weapons are used in a way that attacks Russia, Russia then has all of the pressure in the world on them to not want to respond to Ukraine, but to want to respond to, say, maybe the UK, maybe the United States of America. Why on earth would we put ourselves in this position? For what? For what? To keep the war going? To make sure that we sacrifice Ukrainian lives to potentially hurt Russia? Because that's what the goal is here. That's what the goal is. It ain't about saving Ukrainian lives. They wouldn't have been discouraging them from negotiating an end to the war last year if that was the case. Anyway, had to start off with that, just the most insane policy imaginable.